Welcome, everybody. It is not September, it is October.
Oh,
Excuse our
no.
little brains. So welcome to October's Q&A. Today we're doing a deep dive into metrics. This will be kind of a simple introduction, just kind of orienting ourselves and getting used to where everything lives on that metric side of things. In case you haven't met us or you heard about us from a Facebook group and these are new faces to you, welcome. We're so excited to have you. And if you're joining us again, welcome back. So excited to have you as well. We started HSC and these Q&As because we just get nerdy about all things systems and Keeper and integrating different ideas that we've heard from the community and just making those more visible. So we're excited to meet you wherever you are in the journey with Keeper and just excited to have you here today. Alrighty, I think we'll do one piece, we'll do two pieces of housekeeping, and then we'll actually get into the meat and potatoes. So one thing that's really, really important to us is being careful about the pressure that you add to yourself when you see new ideas. It is super easy, and a lot of us fall into this trap of seeing all the bright and shiny objects or the new features in Keeper or something that you haven't dabbled in yet, and then adding it to your to-do list and then feeling overwhelmed or feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm just scratching the surface. And that comes with a lot of extra pressure. So just be careful about what you take on today. If this is not the season where you have extra spoons, take it in as fun inspo, write it down on a note somewhere to come back to. But if you do want to move on any of these, take it a chunk at a time or reach out if you need more help and you're feeling overwhelmed. So really quick, be careful about shoulding on yourself and just see these as opportunities of things you could integrate. And then last piece of housekeeping, we are one of those that we would rather you drop your questions in the chat, even if it's not relevant to what we're talking about right now. That's the way that we keep track of what we're going to move through. So we're going to do a deep dive topic. Like we mentioned, we're going to do it on metrics. And we're going to open up the floor. So if you have questions now that you're like, I came into this session wanting to ask my question, pop it in here, even if it's not related to metrics or vice versa. So whether you have a question about the deep dive topic or anything else in Keeper, something you want to troubleshoot, new feature you want to play around with, go ahead and drop those in the chat anytime, and we'll go ahead and filter through and make sure everything is answered before we end today. All right,
Thanks, Erica.
housekeeping over. Jody, let's
Yeah.
go ahead and get into the fun stuff.
All right. So today, like we've mentioned, we're going to do an introduction to metrics, kind of give you some examples of ones that are easy add visuals, and then some tips on how to adjust those and then publish them and provide them to your clients. So with that, we are going to dive in. What are metrics? They are key data points or KPIs. KPIs, key performance indicators. So it's important information, values, and data that your clients may need to know or would be helpful for them to know as they are learning more about their finances and making financial decisions. These data points pull from the financial statements. You can also create and track custom variables within Keeper. Today, we're going to go over what is in there by default. Um, and using all of those data points, you can create graphs and visuals for your client. Now, these can be used in tandem with the management reports within Keeper, or you can use them as standalone. Where are they? So on the close page or the client page, you have multiple tabs at the top underneath where the client name is, and you're going to be looking for the one that says metrics. Under metrics, you have two tabs here, variables and visuals. Our variables, essentially, they're spreadsheets. So it's a spreadsheet of datas. You've got it split into different tabs. And again, these pull from the built-in financial reports, your profit and loss, balance sheet, statement of cash flows. All of those are automatically in this metrics tab. But you do have the ability to add custom variables. You can add additional tabs to this variable page to create your visuals. So the visuals are created using whatever variables you have present, whether they're the default ones or ones that you've added yourself. If they're on that variables tab, you can then use them in a visual. And we're going to get into more details about that here shortly. First, we're going to look closer at the variables. So on your variables tab, page here, you've got your profit and loss, balance sheet, and the cash flow. Those three are going to be default. If you click this little plus button down here in the corner, you can then add additional tabs. So we have one that's some quick KPIs, and then also a profit and loss by class. So you can select additional ones from there as well. Like I said, it looks like a spreadsheet, just has a whole bunch of numbers in here. This is going to show you 12 months worth of data. So that's going to be across the board within Keeper. On our close page, when we're looking at data on that page, reviewing transactions, the farthest back we can go is 12 months. Same thing here with our variables. We have a 12-month window of data that we're pulling in.
And just to clarify, Jody, is that 12 months from the close period that you're working on?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. So if
Yep.
we
So you'll see
did need
here
to
we're
go
in
back,
September. Yep. So we're in September 25. That's our latest column available here. Our earliest available column is October of 24.
beautiful. So that's going to be really helpful if we are doing like a cleanup and need to do some metrics based on that or anything like that. That may be where you utilize going and opening up a previous month end close period. Beautiful.
Correct. Yep. Excellent point. Again, this just shows you what's default on the page, and then the fact that you can add custom, so you can do additional statements by class, location, customer, if you have that enabled for that specific client. That's another thing. All of these are very specific to that individual client. This is not something that you set up once as a template and apply to all clients. This will be one client at a time. And then, of course, you can create your own.
And we'll go deeper into some of the things that we can pull from a default, but I think it's really cool to just understand that even if we are not in the really in depth, big formulas, like that's what we're into right now, we don't have the space for that. There's still plenty that we can pull just from what's in the default of the profit and loss or the balance sheet or the cash flow. So don't let yourself get turned off by the idea of, oh my gosh, I got to do formulas. I definitely don't have the space. There's definitely plenty that we can play with that are relatively simple that can add more value to our actual reports. So just want to make sure, because this is where I start to get overwhelmed, is like, oh my gosh, we have variables and formulas. Like, don't have to.
Yes, it is easy to do an introduction into metrics and skip this page completely. Like I just want the data from the reports that I have. I'm going to skip straight to visuals. So that is something that you can do. And actually, what I recommend you do if you're trying to start dabbling in this is just go ahead and skip straight to that visuals page. Within the visuals, when we add it, we give it a title. You have the option to add a description if you would like, or a subtitle to it. You can choose the format, whether it's currency, percentages, that type of thing, and how you want that rounded. And then you choose your visual type. And you can see the full list here, and I've got a slide that shows you examples of what all of those look like. And then this is where you're going to select that variable or multiple variables to be created or to be pulled in for that report. Now, a somewhat more recent feature update is our date range. It used to always default to 12 months because that's what was in the variables and that's all you had. We now have the ability to select our date range that we want to show. So if we're looking to only show 1 month of information, we can choose that. We can choose to show just fiscal year to date or even calendar year to date. So if depending on the visual type that you choose. So there are some that'll limit you. Like I think the line graph 1 month's not going to work for that because it's a line graph. You need more data for that graph to work. But when you select your visual type here, you then have a drop down that you can select for your date range. Helps it to be more relevant for where you are in that period.
Yeah, really exciting update there. I know some of us landed on the side of I just want to see someone 1 month, and some of us landed on the other side of things. So now it's cool that you can choose, and this is also really helpful for choosing like by client what's going to be most helpful for them in their process and the decisions that they're making.
Yes. Yes. All right. So like we said, you can create visuals for any variable in your tab. This is a quick preview of some that we have in our demo account, bar chart and area graph, and these would be considered KPI indicator cards. This is just one single variable. All the rest of them have multiple variables, but this is one single variable that gives you the balance and then percentage of change. But you can go crazy and create as many visuals as you want. These are the seven different options that you have. So this just gives you a really good vision of these are all very similar things. Most of them are the core costs. So same data, same information presented in different ways. And this is again where you could talk to your client and find out, hey, what would be helpful for you to see? And then you can play around with the types of visuals to look to see, okay, which one makes me feel like I'm getting it across to them more clearly. Um, I think the benefit of doing even just the simplest of income and expenses is to give them that visual. It takes it off of a black and white page of just words, like letters and numbers, and it gives them a clear picture. They can easily see at a glance, hey, something changed here in the middle. Maybe we need to look into that. So that would be the benefit of playing around with metrics. If you're comfortable with that, is just it's a different way of showing the exact same information and could be helpful to your client.
Yep, exactly. And I think one of the cool things with any new feature, but especially something like this, is setting up the variables that you know you want and just clicking through to see the different charts, like Jody said, to see what's going to get that picture across the most clear. So I think that's one that I've played around with as well, is just like, okay, I know I want these, but like, how do I want to show them? What's the difference between some of these? So it's a really cool like exploration. But I will put in the plug of careful with your time and your time management on this. This is one that, especially us number nerds, I can get really excited about, but this is individual per client, right? And we want to make sure that this is within the scope that we've outlined, right? So don't undersell yourself for creating all of these visuals and maintaining them. If it's a fun learning project, awesome, but set a timer so you don't lose yourself in that and then don't get any like marked or paid progress. I think that's just one. I'll take my consulting hat off and I'll get off my soapbox, but that's just one thing to like make sure you're being careful of, because it's really easy to just deep dive into this and then realize that you have way more work on your plate than you originally intended.
Absolutely. I think that was a valid point. Thank you, Erica. So once you've dabbled in it, you've created the ones that you want to share with your client, you can then publish them. So if you are utilizing the management report, there are three places that you can do that. On the executive summary under configure page, you will have the option to select your key metrics that you want shown. Now for key metrics, these are typically your single variable things. So your KPI cards are usually the most common shown here because it's going to show you a single value for that month. Um, but you can add those there. So if you do down the line, if you were to get into more advanced margins, percentages, and that kind of thing, if you create the custom tables and all of that, you do have the option to select those to put them on this executive summary. But the most common one that we see, oh, Erica, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to add that this is a really good like 1.0 if you're trying to add more dimension to your management reports or getting it to click with a client that has a hard time just reading the basic P&L and profit and loss. I think this is a really good one to start playing with that doesn't involve let's go in to create these individual per client like visuals and stuff like that that can be just more time to manage. So if in doubt, play with this one first. You can cut down a whole lot on this page if you just want to show those key metrics or vice versa. So I would say start here if you want to add more value without a ton more time or learning investment. And then we can kind of go sequentially for the next couple that we're going to show as well.
Yeah. And then the next option is the metrics page. You have a whole page that you can devote to those visuals that you've created. So if you don't see this, you can always click add page, then select metrics. And I believe we have the ability now to be able to drag this up. So if you want the metrics page to come before all of the reports, you can drag that up to the top there. But this is just a page that shows all of those visuals for your client. And then the final one, which I think is the most fun, is the new interactive financials. So this is a preview of the client portal showing their side. So back over to our side, here is where we would be able to preview the interactive financials. And I could select metrics right here, see the same information and how my client would see it. But once I've published it to the client portal, I then can see this as my client would see it. So if you've published interactive metrics and reports, financials tab, you would have those showing up here on any of the months that you've published those. Then when the client hovers over these, they can see the data points. And we'll do a preview and once we get into the demo of this. But that's what makes it interactive, is that they can hover over the various spaces on these metric visuals and see what those data points are and what those variables are that went into creating it.
Yeah, and for any of us that have been using Keeper for a while, this was a big discrepancy is on our side when we were looking at it, we could hover over and see the percentage or see the total of that. But then when we published
Mhm.
it to our clients, there was no numbers or data on that at all. So there was kind of a rift for a lot of us that we didn't want to use metrics until that was possible. So now this enables us to still have that interactive view and for clients to keep an eye on things in their own time and space while still being able to see everything they need to.
Yeah.
This being said, this is a really good point to make that these interactives are not available on the mobile app yet. So if clients are using the client portal on the mobile, there is not going to be this tab here or the interactive piece here. So I'm going to go ahead and drop in the chat the canny request for this if anybody else would like to upvote. Upvoting it gets it to where the team sees it and is able to prioritize based on kind of the volume of people that would like to see that feature implemented. And it also keeps you in the loop when that status changes or when they do upload or kind of create that feature in Keeper. So that's in the chat if anybody would like it.
Before we dive into our demo, I wanted to share just a few examples. But the possibilities are endless, especially as you get more involved in them or as you explore them more, if you choose to do that. Especially if you get into the more advanced ones. There's a lot that you can do here, but it does take time to learn them and explore them. Um, Common ones, simple yet very powerful, is just a simple income versus expenses. You can also pull out key account balances. I've seen, I do for my clients a lot that have multiple revenue streams. I'll do a sales per service line or revenue based on the type of sale that they're doing or that income, the income streams there. Cost of goods sold, again, that's another simple one that you can just pull directly from your P&L and into a visual. The ones that I consider more advanced are ones that are probably going to involve formulas and some custom tabs or custom variable pages to be able to then pull and create those visuals. Some of those would be margins, percentages of things, budget versus actuals, those type of things would be what I would consider more advanced settings there. And our biggest recommendation when it comes to metrics is just start simple. Even very basic visuals provide an incredible value to your clients because, again, like we mentioned earlier, it provides the same data in a different way. And sometimes seeing it in a different way or in that visual chart, graph uh, way, it can unlock a different understanding of the information. I'm putting our consulting hats on. If you do decide to expand into more advanced metrics, we would highly encourage you to consider increasing your pricing because it does take more time to invest in those more advanced metrics, and you want to account for that added setup and the incredible added value that your clients will gain from that. That definitely goes more and more towards that advisory service.
Exactly. And I think that's That's the only point that we want to make here is that that is closer toward advisory, kind of starts to blur that line. So just make sure that you are protecting your own time and the value that you're creating. That may mean, hey, I have like a tier on top of this. I do kind of basic financials for most people, but I have a tier on top that I do some metrics or some manual reporting or more like hands on calls with them. But just keep in mind that can be something that's blurry over time, right? That we kind of like live in this in between for a season until we figure out where we want one to live and one to start and one to end. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind that this is this probably should not be a free service that you add on unless you are doing like you have that accounted for in your packaging.
All right, quick blurb to save the date for next month's Q&A. Wednesday, November 19th, we're going to continue our talk on metrics and go into the more advanced settings there, customizing formulas, that type of thing. So save the date for next month's metrics 2.202. And with that, we're going to dive into the demo and start answering questions, give you guys a quick look, live view of the metrics, and then we'll jump into the chat with any questions. So if you haven't asked your question yet, please do drop it into the chat. If it's about metrics, okay, we'll get to those first probably, but if not, ask anything about any feature in Keeper, and we are happy to explore that with you on this call.
Beautiful. Well, while you're switching over, Jody, I figure we could do just a basic on metrics like we were talking about. I do have one question queued up, but for the recording sake and everybody involved, let's go ahead and do that metrics
Sure.
basic, and then I'll jump into the question next.
All right, so as we mentioned, it is going to be here on this metrics tab between your close and reporting.
And this is a good mention, actually, sorry to interrupt, that these are for connected clients, right? Because this is pulling
Yes.
from the accounting software. On an unconnected client, you will not see metrics or reporting at all. So if you can't find that button, that's probably why. Just making sure that that's like connected for everybody as well.
And this is available for both QBO and Zero clients, so it will still pull in those details for you. So this is your variables tab. As we mentioned, you get 12 months worth of data, so 12 columns of data. This is going to pull directly from that profit and loss, balance sheet, and cash flow. And in here, you cannot edit these details. So on these three default reports, this information is not editable. You can do your editing in the close when you are working through your transactions, making any updates directly there. That will feed back to QBO immediately. And then that information is also updated here in real time for your variables. Once you do get into the advanced customizing, all of the customized ones, that's where you're entering in the information. So that is something that you can update and change. But on these three default ones that are the statements, all the information is locked down. All right.
And
Oh, you
just
can
want
also
to call
change the
out,
basis here too if
yep,
needed.
on the same page here. That's one that I hear a lot that we're like, where do I find that? It's a tiny little hidden button, but that's where you can find it on either the variables or the visuals page. So
Mhm, mhm. So like we said, we've got some built out here already, but I'll show you from scratch. So we want to add a visual and we will do, let's see, what do I want to do? Cost of goods sold. Do we have any cost of goods sold? We'll find out. I'm going to leave it as currency. My favorite is the area chart. And then I can select my um, variables here. So this is going to show you every account, every variable line that you have. So it can be quite lengthy. If you try to scroll through it, it would be easier to start typing and see. So I've got my cost of goods sold here. And then it's going to ask you to select a color, and if up is good or bad. So that's up to you how you want to do that. And here we go. So I've got one item in here. If I wanted to see this compared to my income, maybe I can add in my income. I'm going to change that to a happier color. Okay. There we go. So we've got our income and we've got our cost of goods sold, just 2 points of data that it's pulling from. Maybe I don't want to see the whole year though, so I'm going to change my date range to calendar year to date. You can also, I didn't highlight this in the slides, but there are some visual types where you can compare to the previous time period. Um, if I do that, it's gonna, on the this one, it's a bit harder to see. So what it does is it's going to show you in a lighter color. So the income for this year is a darker purple. Income from last year is a lighter purple. This is probably easier to see on a bar chart where you can see the darker one is 25, lighter one is 24. So you do have that option to compare to a prior time period if you wish on some of these. But this is where you can just really play around and see what style works best. For those, I don't know if I have multiple income in here, income streams. That's another fun one to do, but I don't have it. I could see what my expenses are. I'm going to do some payroll.
And I think while
This
you're
just
kind
shows
of
me.
showing some of these variables, this variables part is the exact reason why this is not something that at this point in time we can create a template for and just apply across the board.
Correct.
Because this is pulling from this client's actual accounts. So I think that's where the disconnect is. The Keeper team is on it. That is one that they hear all the time is I want to be able to create templates for this and stuff like that. So it is something that they're working on in the background. But I think having that understanding of why we can't do it or why this is individual per client can sometimes help cement, because I find myself all the time, oh, let's create a template for this. Wait, I can't. So that is exactly why is it's pulling from these exact whatever you have set up in your COA.
Mhm. So I just pulled some payroll information. I set it for 1 month. This is going to give me my total for my payroll expenses. And then if I hover over, I can see how much of that was wages, how much of that was taxes. That's just another example of a different type of visual. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And the last one that you save is going to be the one that comes up here at the top. If that's not where you want it, you can drag and drop it to whatever order you'd like it to be in. So you can drag the visual by clicking that and pulling it down where you want it to go. If I do that correctly. Nope, I'm still not doing it right. Come down. There we go. So I can have it at the bottom. You can have two of the graphs side by side. I believe you can have three of the KPI cards side by side. So you can play around with your presentation there as you'd like. But all of these, once you have them set, you can edit them. So click on the little settings wheel. It's going to bring up the same thing and you can edit as needed. And then if you're like, I don't want that or need that anymore, you also have the ability to delete them.
I think one thing that's also important to point out is that once you have these created, um, Jody, we don't have to recreate them every month. Can you
Correct.
kind of expand on that? Is it
Yep.
closes moving forward or backward? Just want to make sure we're
Yes. So
covering that.
much like adding a task to your closing section, if you add it there, it's going to repeat the following close period. Same thing with metrics. Once you set them once, they will proceed to go forward. So set them up in the latest or the most recent close, and then moving forward, they will follow through. Yeah.
Perfect. And then I, I was trying to see if there's anything else we wanted to add while we were here on this page. That's all I can think of. Is there anything? Oh,
What?
can we show how to change the colors if we get into it and we realize
Oh.
that we want to change that one? That one's a little bit goofy, but I've heard that question
Yeah, it's
quite a
not
bit.
as easy. It's not easy to do. So if we wanted to change the colors, essentially you have to delete the variable and then come back to the variable. So I can't click on it to edit that part. Um, so what I would do is X out of the wages and I would go to add wages back in, and then I would select a different color this time for that, save it, and now I've got a new color. A little
Perfect.
clunky. but that's
Yeah,
how
if
we
you're
can do that
looking for
now.
an edit button, you're not missing it, but that's kind of the workaround that we have to change that color.
One thing to keep in mind, especially with KPI cards, but if you have multiple variables and there's a variable that doesn't have data that period, it's only going to show the data for, if it's 0, there's nothing to show. If it's a KPI card, and it's 0, you may end up with an error, or it'll just look blank. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is that if you do have something that's a single month and a single variable and there's nothing in that account, it's a 0, you may either receive an error or it'll just be blank for that period. So that would be up to you. If you wanted to remove it for that month, then remember to go back in and add it back.
Yep. And then if we are going to include these in our management reports, let's show that reporting side and what page those actually show up on.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving over to reporting, we've got our metrics the way we want them. We're going to move over to reporting. Take a minute to load. My internet's slow today. And I already did add that metrics page down here. We're going to let it finish loading. Come on. I don't think I can drag and drop it while it's loading. There we go. All right, so if I wanted to move it, I can hover, hover over it and drag it up to where I want it to go. So if I want to do the executive summary and then my metrics page, I now have that ability, which is so great because for the longest time it was locked at the bottom. So metrics page here, you can do that. If you need to edit the visuals, there's a button here to edit. It's just going to kick you back to where we just were on that metrics tab, on the visuals tab. Here, when we're looking at it, we can see all of these numbers. When this publishes, it becomes a PDF. So these numbers are no longer available to them. It will just look like this, a flat PDF page. If you want them to have interactive, so that when they hover over, they can do that, you'd want to publish the interactive financials here. Looks very similar, but this is exactly what the client will see, and I'll show you that with the client portal preview here in just a minute. But as we also mentioned earlier, the executive summary is where you can add in some key metrics. So if you go to configure page, you can toggle that on and then manage what you are adding in here. I had some other ones preset, so I'm just going to select that as a percentage, percent save. And this is where you can pull from any of the variables that you have available. And you'll see that I've got that now added down here as another line item. But for the executive summary, this key metrics, it's going to look like this. You're not going to be adding in a graph or a separate bar chart or anything like that here in this section. This is just giving you that title of whatever you've labeled it, and then that value that you've given to it. You want me to go ahead and show the portal preview
Yeah,
interactive?
I think that's a perfect segue to go over and show
Okay.
kind of that client side of things. Yeah, perfect.
And I think we highlight this on every Q&A because we love it so much, but clicking on portal, navigate to the portal settings. You got your preview here. This is just a easy way to see live what your client can see. So this is real time, exactly what your client would see when they log in. So if they have access to financials, you can click on that financials tab. This is where they'll see that PDF of it, and it'll have the PDF of the metrics at the bottom because I didn't publish it after I moved it. So this is what they'll see on the metrics page in the PDF. Somewhat helpful, but not as helpful as what the interactive would be. So I can click on metrics here, and then as a client, I can hover over and see, okay, January, these were my values, February, these were mine. You can hover over each data point and see how that breaks down. Same thing over here. You can toggle through to see what the data points are as the months progress. Did we have any other questions surrounding metrics before we open up to anything else in Keeper?
Not that I've seen. So if there are any questions that you have now that we've kind of done a live demo, feel free to pop those in. Or likewise, if you have other questions, now is a safe time. Jody, while we're waiting on anybody to kind of guide us where to go next, one thing I wanted to come back to is in that case, if you are running into like you have to remove it because this is an empty value for this month, I wanted to cover some troubleshooting ways that we could capture that on our task so we don't forget for next month. So I can think of two different ways. If we go back to the close page, and if you have a task as part of your close that is like publish client financials, you can add a description there on that task to say removed for September, add back in October. Like that would be a very easy way to go ahead and capture that. Yep, just right in here. That description is going to pull over for next month. So you don't have to worry about adding a comment, but that comment disappears the next time you open up a close period. So I would say play around with utilizing the description if you already have a closing task, or you can create a custom task as a reminder that's set for when you're going to be publishing those financials for next month. Beautiful. Thanks for providing a visual for that, Jody.
Mhm.
I've had some people go in and try to add a comment that they can't see the next time they open up a close
Right.
because it sticks to that task. So, wanted to provide a quick example. So, again, using the description there or a custom task up at the top in like the general section if you don't have a task like
Yeah.
this that you want to utilize.
Yeah. Excellent.
Beautiful. Alrighty. Well, I don't see any other questions. Oh, perfect. Perfect timing, Catherine. Um, Okay, beautiful. Text
Text reminders.
reminders on. Ooh, really great. So let's give some context. We're talking about client text reminders. We don't have the ability to get a text reminder ourselves. So that's the context that we're talking about. And we're talking about those auto reminders, the ones that are going to go out on that set frequency every Monday or Thursday, however you had that set up. And then we get to choose, do we want to give our clients an email at that time, a text, or both? So, Jody, I'll let you riff on like any cons tips on your side, and then I'll
Yeah.
add to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do think that this is going to end up being a personal preference, both for the firm and for the client, on whether they want to receive text messages. So that's just going to be personal preference. I have seen people who, as part of their onboarding, will ask, "Do you want to opt in to text reminders?" Again, you could do that as I've seen them added in as their part of their onboarding questions or questionnaire. But you could ask that as a non-transaction question at any point. So if you are considering rolling it out, you could pose that question to your clients and give them the option of whether to opt into them or not. Um, and one of the cons for texting is that it is a one-way thing. So you will send a text out, they cannot respond back to that text and get to you. Um, so this is really truly just a reminder of, hey, go to your portal, please open that up and then message within there. I think that's the biggest con. I can't think of any others. I can think of some pros, like if they are utilizing the mobile app for the client portal, having that reminder of, hey, we've got some outstanding questions. Can you jump in and answer them? Maybe reference, log into the app, something like that. Then it's quick for them to transition over there and get access to it. So that would be one benefit of doing the texting, but I do think it comes down to personal preference, both firm-wide and on the client. But what those texts look like, let's just take a quick look in the templates here. So if we open up our template manager, we've got all of our emails here. We have text templates as well. So a quick intro text is going to look like this. So this is all that they're seeing. There's no hyperlinking or anything like that. They'll see the full URL there. You can reference, hey, go into the portal if you're, your portal app if you have it. Um, Reminder text typically looks something like this. But again, this is something you can edit and you can add your own templates in here as well. This is that reminder text though. So if you are looking to do this as part of the auto reminders and you want to edit what that reminder is, you have to edit this specific one for it to be selected and used for those auto reminders. Um, the auto reminder texts go out the same time and same way as the emails do. So if we're looking in our client portal settings, reminders, we have one frequency, one thing to set here. You have the option to set a second one, but this is going to be the same cadence, frequency, all of that for emails and text messages. So if you have it enabled for both of them, if you have both enabled for a client, then they will receive both an email and a text, same day, same time.
Yep, I think a couple of other things to kind of consider, Catherine, or anybody else that is kind of playing around with this idea. Um, we can turn it on or enable text notifications client by client, but not contact by contact.
Correct.
So that is one thing to consider, and just kind of
Although,
understand. Yep, go for it, Jody.
although if the contact does not have a phone number, they're not going to get a text.
True.
So if you have 5 contacts in here, only one of them needs or wants text reminders, only enter the phone number for that one person who's going to get the text reminder.
No, that's a great workaround. Because that's one that I've seen in the community, that does get kind of frustrating, and I think there's a canny feature request out there. So that's probably your sneaky little hack. If
Yeah,
you only have one person or one or two people that want that text reminder, but you can only enable it on the client level and not the contact, is just don't add those
correct.
numbers in. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you want to message them, so we've talked about the auto reminders, but just like we can send any email at any time manually to our client, we can also manually send them text messages as well. So you can choose from the templates that are in here or the templates that you've created, or you can just select the contact you want and add the text and send it to them. Just again, keep in mind that it is a one-way path. It is not a space where you can exchange text back and forth. It is one way and direct out.
And one thing that I've seen kind of as a best practice or a tip on this is, if you are going to use like text auto reminders, one thing you may include or add to the baseline template that Keeper provides is a reminder, like a physical reminder at the bottom. We don't receive text to this number. Please answer any questions in your client portal. And then here's
Yeah,
the link, right? To be really, really explicit, because it's not one of those that you're going to get a text to let you know that that client texts you so you can redirect, like an email. If they email you back, you're going to see it in Gmail or in Keeper inbox and be like, hey, please go into your client portal. You're not even going to see that they were texting you. And that is kind of a recipe for a client communicate, like a client miscommunication. If they're like, I keep texting you these answers and you're not listening. So I would be super explicit and add that to my template, like my reminder template as it goes out. And honestly, I've seen a lot of people just set up a blank text template that has that blurb at the bottom so that when you send a custom text, it still has that same verbiage at the bottom and includes their client link so that you can kind of add to, but keep that consistency too. So easy little tip there, but one that is probably going to save you a little bit of client headache.
Oh, I did see a follow-up question about um, do you tend to see that if clients want only one text or email, or do they get upset about getting both? I personally have not heard any response of people getting upset about having multiple reminders that way. Uh, but again, that would be where I would encourage you to communicate with your client and say, hey, we have these options. Which do you prefer? The other thing is that if a client is being unresponsive, with emails, maybe switch tactics and try a text to see if they'll get into the portal, or vice versa. If they've said, I want text reminders, don't send me emails, but they're still not getting into the portal, then maybe you go ahead and follow up via email as well. So I do think that's going to be personal preference there.
Yep. And I would say that's, if I put my nerdy consultant hat on for a second, that's probably a good thing if you already do the practice of having kind of an annual check-in with your clients about, hey, how is everything going services wise, communication wise, like just kind of evaluating the different areas. Are you getting enough from your reporting? That sort of thing. That's probably a good thing to kind of feel out. Or so you can do that kind of proactively and make it part of your process, whatever that looks like. Or you could have that be part of your reactive. And I don't mean that with any negative connotation. It's just kind of like which we use these strategies for. But your reactive strategy, if somebody isn't getting into the portal, then that's probably a good one to kind of reach out and flag, hey, are you not getting the reminders? Are you having any trouble logging into the portal? Like what's coming up on this so that we can troubleshoot together. So, Catherine, that's a nerdy answer, and it's definitely a coach answer that introverts probably would not like, but that's a really good flag to kind of set the baseline based on their preference. So maybe you ask that as a non-transaction client portal question for everybody as you're rolling out the portal, either in onboarding or if you're kind of doing that now for current clients that you already have. And then just use that as a touch point for if you see that clients aren't getting in there, that would be where I kind of implement that strategy to ask them specifically. Beautiful. Oh, Jody, let's cover really quickly how to send out a non-transaction question. So let's do the example of like, I think everybody is relatively familiar with an onboarding template where you have questions at the bottom that it just drops in. But if let's say we're rolling out the client portal now and we've had previous clients or current clients that are already in Keeper, what's the quickest way to do that? We can add a single question here on the client page, but if we want to roll it out to multiple clients, I want to kind of give people the ammo for either way.
Okay, I might need some clarifying here.
Yeah, I
So
got
are
you.
we adding a non-transaction question like, do you want to opt in to text
Hmm.
messaging
Yeah.
via, okay, so that would be in a template.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we
I'm
could
like,
do
which way are we
that.
going here?
No, no,
All
no,
right,
you're
so
good.
yes, we're
So
gonna come
on an
into our
individual
templates.
client level, we could go into client questions and just
Right.
add question. That one's pretty easy. We're comfortable with that for a lot of us. So non-transaction
Yeah.
questions,
Add
add a single
question.
question. Beautiful.
Yeah. But
But
if we
if we don't
are
want to do
rolling
that
out
one by
something new,
one, yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So this is where you kind of tap into some bulk actions that you have available. So there's uh, to create and drop that into the client portal, we would highly recommend doing a new template. And when you create that new template, just add client questions area and then add that question that you want to add in here. Um, into our new. Okay, so we'll add that in and then we can click apply to clients, select the clients that we want to, or select all of our clients and drop that into the portal there. So that would apply it to everyone. So that would be a way that you could take something that you're rolling out across the board and drop it in to everyone. Another thing that you can do is say you're rolling out the portal for the first time. Um, hold on, I was trying to check something else. All right, we can't do a text blast like we can an email blast. That's what I was trying to check on. Can I send an email or send a text to a bunch of people at the same time? But we can with our emails. We can do an email blast. So if we are rolling out the client portal for the first time, if maybe we are rolling out text messaging and we want our clients to take advantage of the mobile app, we do have some default templates in here in our emails to our clients to say, here's an introduction to the mobile app and links for them to be able to download that. Intro email with the mobile app in there as well. So there's a couple of different ones in here that are default to Keeper. But if you're wanting to use this, you can do an email blast to all of your clients with this. So you can create a draft email and then select your clients and your contacts here. And if you're wanting to send that to every contact, you can just check the box at the top and say select 11 contacts. And then here you're going to be able to tab through that and preview all of them before you hit send. So you can make sure that things are updating the way that you want them to update and everything comes through clearly. Um, and then you can schedule that or just go ahead and send it. So just another little tidbit there. If you are rolling out a new feature or rolling out something new and you're doing that across multiple clients, you can do this bulk action to get the word out there instead of having to do it individually one by one.
Yeah, great mention here, Jody. I know a lot of us are starting to think about 1099s, which make just saying that makes my ears come up, or my shoulders come up. But either for rolling out the client portal, asking if anybody wants to opt into text reminders, asking about receipts, like any of these are fair game to use that email blast feature for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Jody, we've got a couple of questions queued up. Let's do a quick, making sure that anybody that needs some help knows where to go and how to best get in contact to us. Let's do a quick little blurb on that and then we'll pop back into questions. Lovely. So we have lots of freebies. These monthly Q&As are our most well-known, so you can join us next month for Metrics 202 if you want to for there. Or on our YouTube channel, we have all previous ones if you want to go back and see what topics we've covered before. We also have an additional resources page where if you want fun PDFs of what kind of tags to use or things like that, you're more than welcome to go check out any of those to kind of get you on your way and get you a little bit more settled in Keeper. And then Jody, if you'll go to the next slide, we also are able to help in more capacity. So if you are somebody that realizes, oh my gosh, I'm in too deep, or I'm making a big transition in my software, or things just aren't clicking the way I really want them to, that's when I would encourage you to reach out. Easiest way to do that is go to our website and go to hughesandstrong.com/contact, and I will meet your smiling face and kind of point you in the right direction. But this can go anywhere from I just need to train my team because I'm still learning it and I need somebody to kind of explain and cheerlead Keeper to we can look over your Keeper account and do specialized recommendations all the way to I don't want to set any of this up. Can you help me? So, full spectrum here of support and more than happy to help you wherever you fit along the journey, especially if you're like, I know I need help, but I don't know in what capacity. Let us know. I'll get you in for a call and we'll kind of figure out what feels best for you. So, quick little blurb there in case anybody realizes that they need more help.
All right.
All right, Jody,
We'll jump
you
back
ready
over.
for
We will continue to answer the questions until we've answered everybody. But if you do need to go, feel free to go on with your day. But for those of you who are sticking around, we'll go ahead and finish with some of these questions.
Absolutely. And for anybody that does have to log off, I'll send out their recording on Friday and it'll also be posted on YouTube. So if you want to catch these last couple minutes, but you got to go do your bathroom break for your next call, we'll be available.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, Mary Ellen. So can you point us to how to review the quarter? This quarter compared to the same last quarter. So, ooh, that's a really good question. Jody, any suggestions
Okay.
here?
Let me think through what we have available to us.
Yeah, because if we go into transaction review or profit and loss or something like that, we do have the option to switch between periods. But I wonder if this is a little bit
Yeah.
of the limitation here.
Um, it is a little bit. So feel free to come off of mute and ask more specifically, but there are ways to view by quarter. So if you're trying to review specific information, you can, configure that so that it's showing you in a quarter by quarter view. So you do have that option within the financial reports down here for you to review. If this is something that you're trying to let me know. I don't want to go into it if it's not what you're asking. But if you're trying to figure out how do I present that to my client under reporting, I can
No,
go into that tab.
that's not what I
Okay, so you're talking
trying.
about internal review.
Yeah, I like a quality control. My client is very seasonal. Summer, they do 80% of their activity in the summer. I want to compare this summer to last summer and just make sure I
Oh,
was consistent kind of in how I coded things mostly.
yes. So all within here, you do have 12 months worth. So if you are in your, no, I want to do transaction review. If you're in your transaction review, you gave the example of making sure that you're consistent. Then when you're in here, I think it does default to past month. If you select past 12 months or all dates, then you're going to get 12 months worth of information. All dates includes the month that you're currently in. So you'll see this is October to October versus past 12 months is October to the September because we're in September close. Um, so this would be where you can make sure that you're seeing everything and it'll pull in that previous quarter as well and show you what's inconsistent. If it's just past month, it's only looking within that past month to compare. Is there anything different from this past month? But for the expense inconsistency, as you expand that date range, it's going to be looking further and further back and comparing how things are this quarter to how things were in previous quarters or previous months. So hopefully that helps answer your question or helps guide you a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think it's exactly what I want to see, but that's okay. I'm glad that it's that I just couldn't. It sounds like what I truly want to see. It's not available right now. So
Yeah, that could
That would
be.
be one
Um,
to, this sounds like a cheesy answer, but add to Canny, the feature request platform, and or post in the Facebook group
okay,
to get that word out. That's the best kind of thing. If you're like, okay, this is a workaround that at least gets me close enough, but I do actually want to be able to see this for a different reason, then I would say go ahead and put it in a Canny and then blast it out to the
yeah,
Facebook group so other people who want to see that as well can upvote for you.
great.
absolutely.
All right,
Thanks.
Jody. Yeah, no problem. Let's go ahead and answer that biannual question. I think that's a really common one, and then we will have to kind of wrap ourselves up. I forgot I have a training after
Yeah.
this.
Sure. Okay, so if you have somebody, if you have a client, I think essentially, if you have a client that has an unconventional close period, or it's a client that you work on projects. So the options within Keeper are a monthly close or a quarterly close. Those are the only two options at this current moment. There are canning requests out there to be able to have either a page set up to where there isn't a close period, or to be able to do something where it's an annual or you set the frequency for what that close period will look like. But currently, the only options are monthly and quarterly. So if you have somebody who is an annual client, if it were me, I would just open up a December close. I probably would set them up as a quarterly client. If it's anybody who does anything other than monthly, I would have them in my system as a quarterly client just because you'll not get as many reminders to open the next close. You'll only get that reminder on a quarterly basis versus every single month. Um, and then I wouldn't open the close every time. So if it's an annual client, I would only open up the December, and then that would give me January through December. I'd have all that data, and I can do basically a cleanup, or I could do a review for that year for an annual. If it is biannual, same thing. I would pick two. So if I'm doing a midway through the year review of their books, then whatever month that is, if it's June, open up the June period and just set all of your reviews to calendar year to date. And pull in all of that information for the full year. Review, do your processing, do your updates, and move on. So even if it prompts you and says, hey, you need to open the next close, you don't have to. Only open the ones that you want to. If you're getting that prompt, you can click the little X, it'll go away, and it's not going to come back and ask you again. So that would be how I would approach it. If I have anybody other than monthly, I would set them in my system as quarterly. And you can do that from the all client settings here. You have the quarterly option right here. You can just click this box. That means that Keeper is going to remind you every 3 months, hey, do you want to open up a new close period? Um,
And you'll see
and
the
I would
closes as
only,
Q1 and Q3 instead of
yes,
January or July. So that's your kind of option
right.
there. Now, one thing I think would be helpful if you are doing this for a client is adding a custom task that has a due date to remind you to open that close. So that's one that I would kind of buddy, opening up just those specific periods that you need and setting your reporting for year to date. And then I would add a custom task on top that gives you that firm that due date on your task list to remind you, hey, open up the January close or open up the July close or something like that, just to make sure you didn't miss it.
So here's an example of if somebody's set up quarterly, you'll see Q2, Q3, and the year. And you get to pick and choose which ones you create. So you create previous, it'll give you the year drop down. You can select whatever close period you want to create.
Yep. And both Ellen and Anna, who wanted this feature, I believe there is a feature request out there for being
There
able
is.
to create annual clients, so or annual closes. So that's definitely one to go search through Canny and add your vote to as well to keep visibility on that.
Hmm.
Beautiful. Well, thank you guys all for joining us today. We had some really fun questions that we got to troubleshoot. Definitely reach out to us if you need more help, or join us next month if you want to dive deeper into some of the more nitty gritty and nerdy topics of metrics and go a little bit more in depth.